and welcome to Double Barrel Gaming. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about Song of Iron by Joe Winter. This is going to be a non-spoiler review. Before we get into the actual review, I wanted to talk about who Joe Winter is and his development background. He has more than 14 years in the gaming industry working on coin ops, MMOs, and most recently, Halo Infinite. He was the lead animator on two cryptic projects, most recently the very successful Neverwinter MMO. Okay, so let's talk development pedigree. He started out at Play Mechanics as an animator. From there, took a lead animation position at Cryptic Studios, and then hit pay dirt with a position at 343 Industries. And there, he held titles of animator for Halo 5 and lead animator on Halo Infinite before leaving to follow his dream and create Song of Iron. Joe is by far one of the most approachable developers I've ever met, and his humbleness is something that immediately jumps off the page when speaking with him. I had the extreme pleasure of sitting down to a live one-on-one interview this year on March 31st. Here's a direct quote pulled from Joe's LinkedIn page, and he says this: "I'm always focused on the player's experience and project quality, so I'm constantly looking to be challenged by my project and my teammates in the endless pursuit of perfection." The big takeaway from that conversation was where the story of Song of Iron came from, and to be honest, it's a cool one at that. The Viking character that you're going to use on your journey is an old Dungeons & Dragons character that he created while playing the very famous pencil and paper RPG. And being an old school player of D&D myself, this made me smile from ear to ear. Now that you know who Joe Winter is and how Song of Iron came to be, let's talk about one of 2021's biggest surprises. As soon as you start the game, you are presented with a funeral of your loved one who has passed. A small prologue ensues where the story of that tragedy is fully explained. If you're a fan, and who isn't, of Playdead's Limbo and Inside, you will truly enjoy Song of Iron. And what's incredibly interesting about the comparison is how the story is told almost through no dialogue. Sure, there are some small explainers, but it appears that the unfolding tale becomes subjective to each player. At the start screen, you'll have a choice between male and female Viking characters, though this appears to only be cosmetic in nature. As you traverse through the burning village, you'll come across a broken down cart with an axe, shield, and bow and arrow. From there, you can pick up weapons and shields of fallen enemies as you progress through the story. This is a 2.5D experience that has the character you control on the traditional 2D plane. You have your front and rear backgrounds that make the forests, dungeons, mountains, and snowy Alps not only feel real, but lived in. Through general progression, you'll find upgrades to your current armor, and that includes your gauntlets, breastplate, helmet, and boots. Now these are hidden but accessible through exploration. Some of the upgrades allow for you to set your weapons on fire, as well as throw your weapon of choice and call it back, giving a huge nod to God of War. Fans of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings will immediately recognize and appreciate the many one-to-one shots within the game that give homage to several points and places within those films. The enemies range from human to ogre to giant trolls, and there are also several other types that I will not spoil, but will certainly offer a big challenge to the player. Speaking of difficulty, there isn't an easy, medium, or hard setting. Song of Iron will challenge players, though it certainly isn't as brutal as titles like Demon Souls or Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Learning to block with your shield and weapon is ultra important, though there is a roll move that can get you out of trouble to come behind your enemies and strike the the killing blow. Having a bit of patience and learning the enemy's movement will certainly help the player from dying as much. Song of Iron does not hold your hand, and there will be parts where the only way through is figuring out the puzzle in front of you. There are also swinging hammers and traps that will at times prove challenging but can be overcome with practice and patience. Having a checkpoint system that works and is player friendly is something that Song of Iron has in spades. The length of Song of Iron will be determined on the player's skills, and like Playdead's Inside and Limbo, it's about 4 to 5 hours on your first run. I have already beaten the game twice, once as the male Viking, and on my second run, the female Viking character. There are secrets that are only accessible once the player has run through the game several times, which brings us to the replayability. I would gladly run through Song of Iron a few more times and come back to the title yearly just to play through it again. During my original interview with Joe, he explained that Song of Iron was written as a trilogy and is hoping to get back to work on part 2 as soon as Song of Iron officially releases on August 31st, 2021. Currently, the game will be available on Xbox, Steam, and Windows PC for the incredible price of $19.99. I quite enjoyed my time with Song of Iron and cannot wait to play through it again. Not only do I highly recommend it, I think it's going to be one of the biggest indie titles in 2021. The gameplay is incredible, the artwork is breathtaking, and the story is fantastic from start to finish. I give Resting Relic's Song of Iron 9 fiery axes out of 10. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Double Barrel Gaming. If you enjoyed today's review of Song of Iron, please hit that like button, share this on social media, and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again for watching. Have an awesome day.